Is everybody recording?
And my question, as Donald very correctly picked up, was, is everybody recording?
Yes. Is everyone recording?
Wait, hold up. Let me mukbang.
We don't want your
the
mukbang.
people don't like it.
Yeah, the people don't like mukbang.
It's called misophonia. They hate it.
Yeah, people have misophonia. You know what they do like? This. What you trying to get into a day soon? What you trying to do?
I got out.
You got
I went
out.
outside. I went outside.
Very
Oh,
nice.
Donald left his home and came to an epic Krista's birthday party.
Oh, the photos looked great.
It's probably one of the best parties I've been to in my life, other than my wedding.
Yeah. Krista's favorite band is the Talking Heads, and they had a Talking Heads cover band. And she also loves the Police. They played Police songs. And then Charlotte got up and sang Roxanne by the Police. And Andrew Watt was just
the lead. You're burying the fucking lead.
Andrew Watt
And Will Ferrell playing drums, bro.
Chad Smith. Chad Smith on drums, not Will
No,
Ferrell.
that was Will Ferrell playing drums, dude. I couldn't believe it. Yo, did you guys know that Will Ferrell could play drums like that?
You know that they did a bit on Jimmy Fallon about this, Donald?
I know.
It was so funny. And I thought that Will Ferrell could actually play until I was clued in that Questlove was playing for him, and he was just faking the shit out of it really well. Chad Smith was playing drums, and he was incredible. And Andrew Watt, who's just the sickest guitarist I've ever seen in real life.
Well, we had one of the sickest drummers in creation, and one of the sickest guitarists in creation.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like it. Donald, it was funny because I remember Donald on the podcast being like, I know Andrew's like a huge producer, but is he a really good guitarist? Cut to Donald standing literally 3 feet from Andrew. Just
I was trying to fuck his guitar while he was playing it. That's how good this motherfucker was. You know how the rock stars be jumping up and they be real close to each other humping?
Yeah.
I get it now, man. That fucking music bounces off that fucking shit onto you, and you're like, yo!
You know how like people in the band, like rock stars, they get really close to each other and they play their instruments really close to each other? Joelle?
That's how you know they're vibing.
I'm telling you this story. Donald knows it. Well, Donald was kind of doing that without an instrument with Andrew Watt.
Oh my God.
He was kind of working his way up as close to Andrew as possible, as though he was playing like bass or something, but he had no instrument.
I know no instrument whatsoever. This motherfucker was licking. Well, I don't know what is the word that they use. Like
What do you call it, Daniel, when someone's doing solo riffs insanity on the guitar?
Ripping it.
Yeah, just soloing, shredding.
Oh, yes.
He was shredding, Donald.
In terms of rock and roll, the motherfucker was shredding
Effortlessly. Like I would take a sip of a glass of water. He was shredding this guitar like I've never seen a person do.
Well, he's one of that. Listen, I'm going to say this.
Go ahead, say it. Don't be shy.
Andrew Watt are the 2 up-close guitarists that I've seen in my life, where I was like, holy shit, up close like that.
Yeah. I think he's on that level.
I think Prince is the best ever to do it. I'm sorry, bro.
No, I'm not saying he's Prince, but I think that I think if you asked people amongst the best rock guitarists currently, I think he's on the list.
Easily.
I've never seen anything like it in my life.
That's so cool.
I wish I could do anything that well.
Right? If I could act that well.
I don't think I act that well.
I know I don't act that well. Shit. Fuck. I know I don't act that well.
No, I think I'm a really good actor. And I think
I got some skills. There's some tools that I'm able to use.
Actor, but I don't think that I'm that good.
No.
He's like Joaquin Phoenix of actors on the guitar.
Leo for me. He's Leo.
He's a Leo Joaquin Phoenix guitarist.
He's Leo.
You're as good as Leo, Donald.
Hell no, bro. Leo's the best in my eyes, bro.
We got to hang with Harrison. He was funny. We got to...
The best action hero in my eyes.
The whole Shrinking cast was there. That was cool.
I'm all right now. You
You
know
were
what I mean?
bopping your head next to Harrison. I looked over and Donald was next to Harrison, both bopping their heads to the music. I was like, this guy's living his dream.
I'm all right now, bro. I'm all right. I can hang out with Harrison Ford and not fucking shit myself.
Yeah, you're getting used to it.
I mean, the first time there was a little shart of a and a pebble of
The
poop.
first time you met him, you sharted?
A little bit in my
Okay.
pants. There was oh shit, dude, keep it
Yeah.
together.
But last
Right?
night you didn't. But the other night you didn't chart.
The other night I kept it together.
And you
and I
held it
was,
together too, booze-wise. You came in a little hot, and I was a little worried. But then you hit the brakes.
yeah, I know my limit now. It's not like it used to be where I could drink and just be like, I'm gonna just go lie down. When I get drunk now, I get sick. So
Yeah.
see you later to that.
Well, because you don't go out very much at all, and so when you first came in, you were like throwing back drinks, and I was like, ruh-roh. But then you like hit
I
the
had
brakes.
2 drinks the whole night, bro.
No, well, I
Two.
just watched you slam 2 right away, and I was like,
Yeah.
ruh-roh.
And
He's
that
gonna
was it.
power walk home.
No, and then that was it. And then after that, it was little tiny sips of
Yeah, then you did good.
yeah.
There were like at any huge party, there were people that got shit faced.
It was beautiful though, bro.
I'm so glad that I'm not them. Like, if we've all been there, well, at least I can say it. I know Donald and I have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful to the universe when it's like the next day and everyone's telling the crazy stories about who was the most hammered and the crazy shit they were saying, that it's not me.
Yeah, and they're not saying. And then you,
Yeah. Because I've been there and I don't do that anymore. And I really hated that part of my life. But I'm so
it's not
happy.
that
when
I
they're
hate it. It's not that I hate it, and it's not that I'm
I have
ashamed
a lot
of
of
it.
shame. I have shame.
No, well, no,
You
it's
don't have
not
shame from when you said stupid shit because you were drunk? I do.
No, because it's everybody said stupid shit, and when they're not drunk too. Look, they're a bunch of sober motherfuckers talking, and they say some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But I'm not ashamed of it. It's the feeling of I beat my body so bad at such a young age that, I'm sure it'll catch up to me eventually, but I beat my body so bad at a young age, man, in my 20s, doing dumb shit, drinking. I still smoke weed, but drinking heavily every night, going to work.
Yeah.
I don't think my body's going to appreciate it in my 60s. How about that?
By the way, the party was so fun. And then I woke up the next day and I was tired, but I didn't feel horrible. So I was so proud of myself that I didn't drink like some people were drinking.
You didn't feel a little dehydrated?
No, I did. I had a little wine, but I waited. My trick was like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to let all these motherfuckers that are pounding tequila fucking get drunk. I'm not going to have anything. I was drinking like water. I think I had an espresso.
An espresso.
Then around like 11:30 when the band started rocking out, I had like a glass of white wine or 2. That was perfect.
And that was a chill. And that was it.
Yeah, and so I was up late because I went back to Andrew's and sat around the fire pit, and we had some laughs. But I definitely didn't do what I used to do, which was fucking be one of those people that just drinks way too much. The next day hates myself. The next day is embarrassed about some stupid shit I said. I don't do that anymore.
No, you did very well. It was very nice to see.
I'm very excited. Very excited about our guest today. Yeah, it's Donald, right?
It is. I can't believe we got him.
Yeah, he is a really a comedy icon, legend,
Genius.
and he's a very, very, very funny man. And we actually have just a weird connection in that we both went to the same theater camp that started us both off, which I'm excited to talk to him about. A place called Stage Door Manor.
They made movies about that place, bro.
They have the theater camp movie that Ben Platt recently made was inspired by that.
But then there was one before called Camp.
Yeah, there was one with Anna Kendrick when she was a little kid, or at least when she was very young. There's been a couple, but none have done it justice. It was a very special place. Let's count in and welcome in Jon Cryer.
5, 6,
Here's
7,
some
8.
stories about a show we made, about a bunch of docs and nurses and a janitor who loved to hate. I said he's got stories that you all should know. So gather round to hear our Scrubs Rewatch show with Zach and Donald.
living legend, Jon Cryer.
The man, the myth,
John,
the legend.
John, you look like you have a professional setup over there.
Well, I am a professional in show business.
Yes.
And this is what I do. No, it's sort of, I got a little light that I put on top of it because, I got to work this.
You do.
And that's our producer, Joelle, that beautiful woman up there.
Joelle. Hello. I'm
John,
good.
we're so glad you're here, man. We don't often get fancy guests like you, and we're very honored that you're here.
Man, you and I should have been all over the Star Wars universe, man. It should have been ours. There's no one that knows it like we know it.
Oh, John, I didn't know you were a mega fan like Donald.
I'm not as big as Donald.
He's not that
Donald
big,
but Donald is on another level.
His knowledge of nerddom spans he has a very, very vast knowledge of
whereas
not
yours
only
is
Star Wars,
yours is
DC,
specific.
Marvel. Like his knowledge is it's Star Trek. It's amazing. Lost in Space.
Whereas you are just Star Wars focused mostly.
No, I got a decent knowledge of all of that stuff too, but his is pretty
I have
amazing.
breadth. You have specificity, and I have breadth.
Yes,
that's why we're better friends than you and Zach.
Don't say it, John. Please.
That's why,
John. I don't have many friends. Please don't take the only one I have.
That's what I'm. This has all been an effort to take the one friend you have left. On my whole career leading up to this moment has just been an effort to hurt you.
Please don't fight over me, guys.
You guys, I was very bummed to hear about your show going away. I thought it was very funny.
You know who was more bummed? Me and Donald.
Yeah.
Right.
See, because we're friends, we're closer.
I wanted to ask you, John, because you've had such incredible success with half-hour comedy, and I saw that the ratings for that show were so strong. So, have you deduced why they didn't pick it up again? I don't really understand why.
Well, you'll never know. It's always a little bit of just, they didn't feel like it for whatever reason. But in our case, two things. They got the NBA. The NBA is coming to NBC, which takes up a lot of time in the schedule. So there's actually a lot less time that they have to fill. But also, we were sort of you end up competing against the other shows for the half-hour slots that they have, and in the end we were ending up competing against George Lopez, and the Lopez show has been on for 2 seasons, and it is produced by NBC for NBC.
Oh, that's always a trick if they own it.
Yeah. And our show was produced by Lionsgate for NBC.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a lot more incentive to keep the Lopez show on the air than they did for our show.
Got it.
And that just, that's corporate stuff that happens. The good news about that is that we can try to sell it other places. And we are, it's an incredible long shot. And I love the fans of the show and I loved the show. And so I'm gonna go down in every possible way. Man. That came out wrong.
You're going to go down. I'm going to go down on every possible
way to get this show back on the air.
Everywhere I go, I went to this party. I went to this really dope party with a bunch of executives, with freaking former executives, with people who are all about TV, and all they said, I fucking love your show. Oh my God, you and John together. It's so fucking good. And then I had to say to them, it got canceled. They're like, what?
Yes, I just had that moment like 2 days ago.
This shit is like killing me, man.
It's a hard business, man. It's hard business because people outside the business wouldn't know. Even I'm in the business, and I didn't know that it came down to like, okay, they have one slot, and George Lopez has been on, and they own it, and so then, bam, you're done. It's cutthroat.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, on some level, I'd really love for my next show to be a streaming show because you don't have to worry about time slots, and you don't have to, But again, I'm so happy for the experience. It was a great experience. Loved working with Donald. Donald is Zach. Did you ever just sort of stand back in awe and just go, Jesus, this guy can do anything
all the time? And in fact, when we make these T-Mobile ads recently, because we haven't done Scrubs in a while, but when we're making the T-Mobile ads, I just look at him and I crack up, and we still making shit up as we go and riffing ideas, and everything he does makes me giggle.
Yeah, no, it's
and you get the joy of having him. You get the joy of having him in front of a live audience where he really goes crazy because he thrives in front of that crowd.
Yeah,
don't you?
And it's just stellar. It's unbelievable. And again, and I'm happy you do that because they love you. And I'm usually so freaked out about the pages and pages of lines that I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, you had
that I'm like, have fun with them, Donald, because I can't pay attention.
Dude, now was this by design? Was this what you had asked for? Did you at any point ask? You know what I mean?
No.
Because like every scene, it seemed like you had pages and pages of descriptional dialogue.
That was not by design at all. No, we no. I mean, you remember in the pilot we had all the stuff that we were saying to the camera and stuff. But that was quick, fun, snappy dialogue, you know. I don't know why Mike O'Malley was our showrunner on Extended Family, and Mike has he's Irish in the best possible way. He does he has that wonderful gift for language and uses it, deploys it. If you've had a phone call with Mike, you've had a really enjoyable half hour, even if it was supposed to be 5 minutes.
He's got a gift. He's got a gift for gab.
He does have a gift. And he does that to the characters, and he decided that my character was the one I think who would speak for him as much as possible. So Zach, I don't know how many episodes you saw of the show, but there was an episode where I had a 3-page monologue in a multi-camera sitcom.
I've never seen that. I've never seen that in a multi-camera sitcom.
Nobody does that. And I gave him shit about it. And he said, dude, you know, they're paying you enough for you to learn this. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Do you miss? I know you started in the theater, right?
Yes.
Do you miss? I mean, first of all, we got to go way back because you and I have a connection to a very special place. I was telling the audience briefly before you came on. You went to Stage Door Manor, right?
Yes.
How many
changed my life?
Me too. How many summers did you go?
I went for 4 summers. From when I turned 14 to when I turned 17, which
Now, Stage Doors Manor doesn't have a Shakespeare. Like, didn't you do Shakespeare?
No, it's mostly musical theater heavy. There are some kids that do just straight plays, but for the most part, it's focused on musical theater.
Yeah.
And John, I don't know what your experience was like, but I never felt like I belonged anywhere. I felt just not in. I don't know. I couldn't find my people.
Yeah.
And that bus led out onto that camp in upstate New York, and it was all about theater people. And it changed my life. It was like utopia.
Yeah. No, I had the exact same situation where I sort of grew up backstage. My parents were performers, so I had a lot of familiarity. And you know, when you hang out backstage, it seems like this incredible, joyful, nutty environment. You know, and you go, how do people work here? This is amazing. And I, when I was like 12, I did a school play or something. And then a friend of mine was going to Stage Door Manor, and I said, there's a camp where they teach this? This is amazing. And I had heard for years the bus ride up to Stage Door Manor is legendary because it's where where all the old kids and the noobs just do this crazy musical theater sing-along for about 3 hours that is so intense that it has become legend. Because if you don't know, if you haven't memorized songs that were cut from Dreamgirls out of town, then you are toast on this bus ride. Did you take the bus ride? I never took it. My mom drove me. But I just heard about it.
I think I took the bus, but didn't know the words. But I was very shy, and I was a very shy kid. So at first, I was just staring in awe at that this place existed because I just didn't. I was like you. I was like, I can't believe. My dad used to do community theater, and he'd take me in to see Broadway, and I just couldn't believe like people do this for a living. This is a job you can have. I was just so go on. What was your experience like when you got to camp?
Well, I was lucky. My first day, this kid came up to me who was this really ridiculous human being. He used to do this thing where his name was David Siegel, and he now goes by David Quinn. He had to change his.
I know, of course.
You know David Quinn. And his big thing was he'd walk around shirtless, and he was slightly overweight at the time, so he would push his breasts together and have them sing songs, and he was beloved for this and for many other reasons. But he sort of I went up there because an old friend of mine had told me about the camp, and he was there, but he was so. The other friend was just there because there were so many girls there, because it was the girls to boys ratio was ridiculous. So especially
when you factor in the being a heterosexual, because there were a lot of young boys who already knew that they were gay, and so if you were straight and you were there, you were kind of like Fonzie.
Yes, exactly. You were instant Fonzie. That is the perfect term. You were instant Fonzie. And so you would go from being the dorkiest goofball at your school to instant Fonzie.
Yes, that was the magic. By the way, this was a place where forget lacrosse and football. If you could sing and turn a joke, you were the coolest.
Yeah, yeah. No, in fact, if you did the volleyball, it was like, what are you doing here? You know, they wanted nothing to do with you. You know, so it was.
I've told this, I think, on the podcast before. When I told my father I was going, and don't get me wrong, he was very supportive of theater, but he read about the camp and he's like, well, I guess you don't need to bring a mitt.
Well, it was funny because we did have there was there was a camp next door, and that was the camp for weight management next door.
Yeah,
and we did have occasionally have softball games with them, and all of their campers would play our counselors. Because none of our actual campers could play softball.
It's so embarrassing.
Wow.
It's so embarrassing.
Wow.
And we would just get hammered. We would just get absolutely hammered in the softball games. It was not. It was very meatballs. If you recall that movie.
Meatballs.
Man. But not Meatballs 2. Not Meatballs 2.
Not Meatballs 2.
Meatballs 2 had the alien. We've discussed this at length.
Not with Meathead. Not with Meathead.
Meathead.
Yeah, not with Meathead.
John, was it there? Did you get scouted there? How did you segue then into starting to become a professional actor?
No, that was still like your generation of stage Dorians was a little bit later than mine, and that was when Scouts started coming up. Scouts didn't really come up yet at that point. No, my generation was the first to do the Our Time Cabaret.
Yeah.
Now, just so you understand this, to people who are not familiar with theater
explain
camps,
it to our audience who would have no. When I think about what this is, they would have no idea what the hell this is.
The Our Time Cabaret was a select group of students. So they would take the elite, the creme de la creme of the camp. They would teach us some musical theater numbers that were incredibly pretentious for 11-year-olds to be doing, and inappropriate, frankly, some of them. And then we would go perform them at local, at the Pines and at Kutcher's, at all the local Borscht Belt hotels.
Resorts.
They had resort hotels with huge theaters,
like Mount Airy Lodge.
Like
that kind of
exactly,
thing.
exactly.
Kind of thing,
yeah. So what was funny about it was it would be the elite of the camp, and you wanted to be a part of the Our Time Cabaret.
It was like making Varsity for those of you that know sports.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for translating to normal people.
Yeah, to normal non-theater geeks.
So there was all this drama about Our Time Cabaret. You know, everybody was always jockeying to get into it. But the funny thing was, when you actually did go to perform, most of these resorts had been there for a long time and were so long past their heyday that the audiences were literally on life support. We pulled up at one point to the Pines, and there's literally an ambulance, giving the clear in the driveway as we're pulling up.
Yeah, I remember being downstage at the end of a number, like out of breath, like with my arms out wide, and a woman leans in. No one in the audience was under 80, and she goes, "You're doing a wonderful job."
Yes. Oh God. And it was so funny because, again, this was so sought after, but when you actually were performing, you were performing for very, very elderly people in sparse audiences, because, again, these hotels were kind of past their prime.
Well, and also some of the people were at bingo.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, the first time, it was great because the very first time, we were sort of an experimental program the first time we did. The first time they invited us to the Pines, they didn't have us perform in their very large theater. They had us perform in the bar. Now, you have not lived until you're huffing and puffing and putting out your, gotta dance. And it's bar patrons who aren't even facing you. They're facing the bar. And so every now and then they'll just turn around like.
And the outfit, by the way, was tuxedos. I don't know if it was when you were.
No, it was black and white. It was black and white
and like a red cummerbund.
Yes.
Wait a second.
Yes.
Hold on. Now, did you have to provide said tuxedos?
Yeah, you had to bring a tuxedo.
So you had to bring a tuxedo just in case.
In the hopes.
Yeah, you made it.
Getting into our time.
A lot of kids brought their tuxedo, didn't make varsity, and brought it home.
Yes. Yes. So the crazy thing is, our time has remained. It still exists.
They still do it.
At Stage Manor, they still do it. It is still highly sought after.
But do they still do it at the Pines?
No, the Pines doesn't exist anymore.
Probably Kutcher's, I think. I think they still do it. Now, there was a documentary made about this camp. I forgot what the doc is called. Joelle, maybe look that up for me. And then I don't know if you saw Ben Platt's movie, John, which was sort of inspired by.
Yeah, which was great. It was really fun and wonderful. And actually, obviously it has changed since I went there back in, 1979 or 80. Yeah. And obviously the new stuff going on is equally wild and bonkers. No, there was actually another movie called Camp that was done by
Anna Kendrick was
Braff.
in that.
Yes, Anna Kendrick. It was one of her first movies.
But the camp was actually made by the people who created the camp too, though, wasn't it?
No.
Weren't they?
No, but some people that went there. John,
it was people that went there.
Got it.
And it was shot there.
And it was shot there.
And there's my favorite moment in the camp movie.
Sorry to interrupt you. Joelle's telling me that the name of the doc is actually called Stage Door.
Okay.
So it's easy to find. But so there's been three films. There's the Ben Platt recent one, which is a spoof but inspired by. Then there's one called Camp with Anna Kendrick, and then there's a doc called Stage Door. I recommend you check them out. I don't think any of them actually fully captured my experience yet. although they're all entertaining. But
yes. Well, what did you come away with?
Most importantly, I came away with just knowing that I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and also I was in an era where scouts started to come up, and so I had a manager. You probably remember Jean Fox.
Yes, I absolutely heard of Jean Fox.
And so back in the day, she was because we have a lot of friends in common, like Josh Charles and others who went
to
there.
High school with Josh Charles.
Yeah, so Josh was up there, and Josh got Dead Poets Society, I think, around that time. So he was one of those people that was like, "Oh my God, like look what can happen if things line up for you at Stage Door." But anyway, that's what happened to me. Is I started going on auditions as a kid in New York City at 14. I started to actually go on real auditions. How did you start going on auditions?
I started going on auditions. You see, this is where nepotism comes in. This is where we start having the nepotism.
Are you a nepo baby, John?
I am sort of a nepo baby in that, I got a break. I had been studying at Stage Door Manor over the summers, and during the winters, I worked as an usher at a theater called Equity Library Theater, which was on 103rd Street. And Riverside Drive. And so I saw a million shows, and I was really steeped in the whole thing. But I didn't get an actual chance to audition until my mom and I were walking down the street, and we ran into an actor named Peter Rattray, who was an understudy in Torch Song Trilogy. And he said, "Hey, have you auditioned for Torch Song Trilogy?" Because there was a young actor named Matthew Broderick who had just lit the world on fire because he was so great in Torch Song Trilogy. And they needed somebody to replace him. And I was like, sure, I'd love to audition. And a friend of my mom's who was a manager, he actually was a lighting designer, but he decided he wanted to try to be a manager. And he said, well, I can get you another audition. Let's get you an audition for Brighton Beach Memoirs, which Matthew Broderick was also in. And I auditioned for both of them in the course of 2 days. Wow. And mostly because I resembled him, I think I got both of them on the same day.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Which was nuts. But I honestly believe it had a lot to do with that I just resembled him so strongly. That they wouldn't even have to change the pictures.
I'm minimizing it, dude.
I don't know, bro.
Matthew Broderick at that era was the guy on Broadway. I mean, I saw all of those Neil Simon plays with my father, and he was as
You
cool.
saw Matthew Broderick on Broadway?
I saw Matthew Broderick do those Neil Simon plays that were Brighton Beach Memoirs, Biloxi Blues.
Yeah, Broadway
this was before he became a giant movie star. He was the Broadway young Jewish. I don't know if he's Jewish, but that sort of.
He's not,
Jewishy young character.
Jewish.
He was the Leo DiCaprio of Neil Simon Broadway.
But he was amazing. I mean,
incredible.
Brighton Beach Memoirs is a really long show. I mean, it's like 2.5 hours, and it was mostly him. It's mostly told from his point of view. He has these enormous monologues, and he was just incredible. And so that was my first job, was being his understudy in Brighton Beach.
Wow. And you got to go on?
No. Well, yes and no.
No.
I got fired. I was his understudy for 6 weeks. And understudy rehearsals. Have you guys understudied on stuff?
No.
It's a different skill, because you're trying to sort of take the person's place, but not, and make it your own, but also do what the other people need to get that they get from the other guy,
Right.
So it's a little bit tricky. In my case, they only rehearsed understudies twice a week. You only got 2 days of rehearsal. So after 6 weeks, I was still struggling because I'd only had 12 days of rehearsal for this huge part.
Huge part.
And you didn't rehearse with the main guys. You rehearsed with the other understudies, who were sometimes doubling people. So they, they would sometimes play 2 parts or whatever. And so basically, after 6 weeks, Matthew won the Tony for Best Actor. And I remember, hearing his name get announced and going, oh, shit. Because now I was understudying a guy who, like, whenever you go see a show and you open your program and there's a blow-in card saying, tonight the role of blah, blah, blah will be played by blah, 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 you go, oh, if the person that is being replaced just won the freaking Tony.
Right.
So I was not looking forward to that. And we had my next rehearsal with Gene Saks, the director, and I had to yell line a couple of times because it's an enormous part. It's like flipping Hamlet. The next day I get a call from my manager, the guy who used to be a lighting designer, and he said, hey, instead of going to rehearsal, why don't you come down to my office? And I was like, I have to be at rehearsl. And he said, no, you don't. Just get down here and we'll talk about it.
I'll get you some ice cream.
Exactly. And I came in and he was crying.
Wow.
And he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but they fired you. But crazy coincidence, though, that day, Fisher Stevens gave them notice on Torch Song that he had to leave Torch Song trilogy at that point. And so my manager got a call saying, hey, is Jon Cryer available to take over in Torch Song?
Oh my God!
Wow.
So that next day,
you didn't even get 1 day to be sad.
I managed to be sad. I managed to be sad that day. I mean,
well, that's a blow to your ego right there.
Yeah, of course. What did you take from that, you think? I mean, because that's fucking humbling as hell especially for anyone, but especially when you're beginning.
Yeah, I took from it that I did not prepare well enough, which I didn't. I really felt like I could have spent a lot more time working on it, and I should have for that run in front of the director. There's no excuse for me to be yelling line ever. Frankly, that can't happen on the night. I can't be. I got to be ready, and I wasn't. And so that's fair. That's fair to fire me for that.
Wow. All right, we're going to take a commercial break because we do that here. And when we come back, we want to talk about Pretty in Pink, one of Donald Faison's favorite films.
Dude, it's one of the things that changed my life.
All right, we'll be right back.
We're back. That was amazing.
Donald, tell Jon how much Pretty in Pink means to you. You've probably told him, but
I've told him several
tell him
times,
so,
but
tell him so people can hear.
Listen, okay, so as a kid, I started going to private schools. And in private schools, you know, as a black dude in freaking private schools, you get, you know, you're not really, you know, you're not necessarily the most popular kid in school. You know what I mean? And I needed an identity. You know what I mean? Because all of the identities that I had before that worked in, you know, wherever I was, it wasn't working. And I saw Pretty in Pink. And I saw Ducky. And I was like, that's my fucking identity. That is my fucking identity right there. There he is.
So how did you adopt it?
Well, then at the same time, A Different World was coming on too. And Dwayne Wayne and Ducky were kind of like the same fucking character. You know what I mean? But just one was black and one was white. You know what I mean? But both were having a hard time fitting in and couldn't really figure out, you know, they knew they loved one person though. They knew they had one person that they could love. And for me, it was the arts. You know what I mean? I wanted to be an actor so bad. And it was to be around all of these fucking great, you know, Macaulay Culkin went to my school. Holly Marie Combs, who was acting at the time, was at the school. Jerry O'Connell, who was the fat kid from Stand By Me, he was at the school. Malcolm Jamal Warner, Tempest Blood, all these motherfuckers were at the school, right? And I'm like, I got to fit in somehow. And Ducky John was the fucker. I mean, the man was the guy.
Jon, I'm sure there's a lot of people. And Donald's being totally genuine. I'm sure there's a lot of kids, young men who sort of felt like they saw themselves in that character. Have you heard that? I'm sure throughout your life.
Oh yeah, and it spans the spectrum. I mean, there's a lot of gay kids have come up to me saying, yeah, that's you know, I just assumed Ducky was gay, you know, and mostly it's somebody who has this weird, fun, misplaced courage. You know, he had this, you know, he sort of lived out loud, even if, you know, the world didn't give him that respect, you know. And I think that's what people gravitate to the character. He was really the person I wanted to be in high school. I was not brave enough to be Ducky in high school. I was not in any, you know, I remember once it was freezing cold. I mean, New York gets bitterly cold. And I used to have to walk across the projects to get to the CC line on the train because I used to go to Bronx High School of Science. And I remember it was freezing cold, and I had some leg warmers that I had from a dance class. So I put on my leg warmers because, damn it, my legs were freezing. I got to school with my leg warmers on, and for 3 years I was leg warmers to everybody, and so I dressed nondescript for the rest of my time at that school.
Wow.
You know, so I didn't. I never felt like he was who I wanted to be, and I think that resonates for a lot of people.
To have the courage, and I remember there was one that I knew of, one out gay kid in my high school, and I think back to the incredible courage. I mean, this was 93 to 97, and it was must have been so hard for him. But I think back now and I go, gosh, the courage that this kid had.
Yeah,
and that's kind of reminding me what you're talking about, just like being unabashedly himself.
Yeah, because the 70s and 80s were an interesting period because you'd had Stonewall, so the gay community was coming out and proud of it.
Yes, they were.
And it was a big part of culture, but there was still, like, you could see Revenge of the Nerds, where they clearly wanted you to empathize with this gay character, but they're super duper making fun of him at the same time.
Yes.
You know, and I remember, you know, it was, you know, because I was in the theater, everybody, you know, that was the go-to epithet when people were trying to insult me was, some homophobic slur, and
Me too.
And but because we were in the theater, we kind of felt we were of gay culture because gay culture is such a big deal in the theater.
By the way, I wanted to, you probably have this in common with me too, is that like all the young people that were my mentors were predominantly gay men, whether they be the teachers at the camp or the counselors or older kids at the camp, or then you get into theater and there was so many people. Yeah. Michael Larson, of course, you remember.
Wonderful teacher.
Well, if you grew up in New York or in the theater community, from teachers to students to best friends, like all of this was what you, especially in New York, especially in Midtown Manhattan where I grew up, it was a part of the community as well.
Yeah.
But you better not be one of them.
Yes. Yeah. No. It retained that stigma. Yeah. And guys who weren't gay, still often felt the need to prove that they weren't.
Right.
Right. And so it was an odd period because I remembered, we would sort of make fun of the homophobic slurs, but also, we're still using them. So it was really America had a lot. We had a lot of learning to do. I think.
What was that like, John, when that movie became such a hit for you? I mean, how did your life change in day to day?
For me, it was interesting because I didn't perceive that I would be super duper famous. I actually the moment I noticed that I sort of had a tiger by the tail was I went to see The Breakfast Club, which we had not started shooting Pretty in Pink, but The Breakfast Club came out, and I went to see it, and it was a packed audience, and at the end the audience just erupted in this ovation, and I thought, oh my gosh, I guess I'm in the next one of these things, and it was like, no pressure.
But you closed the movie so properly too, though, man. If we could get to it, but anyway, we can get to it.
Well, so I did love. I had always been like my sister. I had always admired my sister's social skills. Like she could go out to a club and she knew how to get in. She knew the bouncer. She talked to people. She had a real nightlife, and I always thought, oh wow, it must be amazing to have like a nightlife, have like a social life that way. And so once the movie came out, I was like, I can get into clubs finally, and I did like that, and I did like feeling like I had a place in the world, like I wasn't just like that guy in the, because invariably you would go with a bunch of friends to a club and they'd say, okay, you can come in, but not you, and that would be a big finger at me. And
it's funny you say that because I kind of had a similar experience with Donald. I didn't know anything about going to a nightclub or getting into a nightclub, and Donald, by the time we did Scrubs, was dialed in and knew people, and then he brought me, and I was like, a whole new world.
Don't you dare close your eyes.
And I did like that, women were into me out of nowhere, which was kind of fun. I remember I met this woman named Dawn. She she worked at a casino. She was the baccarat dealer, but she talked really slowly, and she was beautiful. And I remember I was like, oh, I got a shot with Dawn, and it did not work out. But I remember being I do remember liking that women felt they knew me right away, that I had an entree with women. Believe me, I blew it anyway. I still, it didn't make me particularly good at the dating thing, but I did appreciate that socially it made me feel a lot more comfortable.
I'll never forget that feeling where I had been in movies before. I guess not a lot of people had seen them, but I remember when Clueless came out, the week before I was at this club and it was called Essos. I'll never forget this. And I tried to dance with this girl. I was like, you want to dance? And she was like, no, and turned her back and everything.
Oh.
2 weeks later, I'm back at Essos. Clueless has come out. Same girl comes up to me now and is like, "Do you want to dance?" And I remember being like, "This is your chance to be like, no." But I thought she was so hot that I was like, "Hell yeah, let's dance." I was like, I wonder what changed. I remember thinking, this is how naive I was. I wonder what changed. It must be, And it was the Clueless effect.
Do you remember when Donald and I were at the club once, and this was early on, and this was in the era of I mean, I'm saying this so nerdily, and this is in the era because I don't go to nightclubs anymore, but women were backing their things up, right, Donald?
Yes.
This was that
era.
It was the era where the woman would kind of like back her booty up and like
I think they still do that.
I don't know. I haven't been to a club. I don't know.
Yeah,
Joelle, do you know if people are still backing their things up?
They definitely are. They are.
Joelle is a pop culture.
Yes.
Joelle, wait,
Thank
Joelle,
you,
what did you say,
Thank
Joelle?
you. I back up my desktop computer. That's what I back up.
Anyway,
because
women,
I have good
Joelle,
back
I
up my
just
hard
don't have
drives.
We haven't been to the club in a while. I just didn't know if people were still backing their things up.
Definitely, they're popping it and
All that stuff.
Brother.
All right, so
God
this is what
bless
happened to
them.
me, Joelle. The women are coming up to me and they're backing their things up to my groin area, and I don't know what to do. And I look over to Donald like, how do you handle this? What's appropriate?
This is legit. This is legit.
This
He's
really
not lying.
happened.
This is legit.
And I looked over to Donald, and he was like my coach. He was like my cool guy coach because Donald was super cool at the club.
Yeah.
You can
At
imagine.
this point, Clueless is like years. I had done Remember the Titans by this
No,
point.
Donald
I was well in effect mode at this point. in
Donald
time.
was dialed in at the club and knew how to handle when women back their things up. So I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "You got to swing with it." And he kind
I said, "You got to ride it, buddy.
You got to ride it." He made this gesture where like you like just gently hold the hips and then you just ride with it. And I was like, I can't believe. But then and then like cut to like an hour later, he looks over and I'm like, I'm doing it. I got my thumbs up.
I'll never forget this though. Flash forward about 6-7 years into the game. We're out and about. I think we're at Sundance or some shit like that. And he's dating a girl at the time, and she's backing her thing up on him, and he looks over at me, and he's doing this thing, he's riding it, and the face that he made is like, "Yeah, you remember where we started, right?"
The student has become the master.
Yes. Donald taught me how to just ride it. Just ride it. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, John, I wanted to ask you too, because you've had, like Donald and I, like so many, like every actor, you've had ups and downs. You've had, shows that didn't go. And then of course we'll get to the fact that you then got one of the biggest sitcoms of all time, 2.5 Men. I'm sure we have I know we have a lot of actors and people in the business who listen. What is your advice or anything, any thoughts you have on how to ride that wave of, because Donald and I have experienced it. Some years everything's on fire. Some years everything's on fire, and some years you're like, God, I fucking suck. And then all of a sudden you get 2.5 Men, and your life changes forever.
Yes, what I try to do is enjoy how stupid the business is and how unfair it is, because it's ridiculous. As you and I know, we've all been there. We've seen. There was people in stage door, people in other places that I've been where you just go, oh my God, that person is a monstrous talent.
Yeah.
If this business was fair in any way, this person would be Daniel Day-Lewis. And then it just doesn't happen for some reason. And you're like, why? So I try to enjoy how entertaining and dumb the business is, and I try to I do love connecting with audiences, and I try to remember that that's the payoff is that you get these opportunities to connect with audiences, and when you get in a hit, it's just getting more people to connect with. And then you gotta treat that with some respect. Like when people come up to you in the supermarket, this is somebody who had a connection with you and felt like they that your work touched them, and you know what, respect that and be grateful. So I try to come at everything with gratitude, and I had been when 2.5 Men came up, I had been through 3 years of getting a week of work. I had 2 weeks of work. I did an episode of The Practice, and I think I did an episode of Becker. You remember Becker, the Ted Danson show?
Yeah,
so in
Ted
3
Danson.
years, I did two weeks of work total.
Wow.
Because I did The Famous Teddy Z, which was a show for CBS, which tanked after half a season. I did a show called Partners for Fox, which lasted a whole season and then tanked. And then I did a thing called Getting Personal for Fox. And that one tanked after a season. So I got known as the guy who, had his shot, but that nobody
It's so
really
frustrating. Do you get like I do and go, oh, I've lost it. I suck. What am I doing?
Yes. And you start to go, wow, I have no real skills. Yeah. What can I do? Can I teach? Maybe I can, what can I, what really I got to look at where am I going to go from here? And that happened. But I did an interesting thing. Remember it doesn't exist as much anymore, but there was pilot season where there was just this onslaught of projects, and everybody was auditioning for the same stuff, and people were dropping right and left. He got that show. Oh, he got or she got that show. And it was just like a stampede. It was a stampede of actors and jobs and agents, and it was madness. And one year I decided, after 3 years of almost no work, and it was really starting to hit me financially, I decided that I would audition for everything. I was auditioning for everything, whether I was right for it, whether I wasn't right for it. I just said, I got to get in the room with people and show them I can do this and have fun with it. And I auditioned, and that particular pilot season, it was crazy. I auditioned for like this not good science fiction show, got offered a small part in it, turned it down. Got offered another thing, wildly inappropriate for me, but got offered it, turned it down. And what I did was I ended up getting 9 offers that pilot season that I just kept turning down. And the last 2 were 2.5 Men and Battlestar Galactica.
Oh my gosh!
Which became a huge show.
Dude, both of them hits. Both hits. But one.
Wait, John. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
One huge, like, get the fuck out of here hit. Like, holy shit hit. And then another one in its own right, man.
Oh, no, Battlestar
jump-started sci-fi.
Is one of the best science fiction television series in the history of television.
But what shifted,
I love
John?
Battlestar.
So what do you think, when you look back, shifted? Because all of a sudden you've got 9 offers.
Yeah, what it was I started small. I just started it was blood in the water, because there's nothing sexier that they can hear than no. Once you say no, I don't want that, they want you even more.
Yeah.
And so when there was that first little part that I said no to, they're like, "What?" And they wanted to reboot Courtship of Eddie's Father, and I was like, nope, that's not for me. Well, partly because the script wasn't there, but but I turned that down, and and there was just it made people excited about me again because I was turning things down. And
you weren't desperate, bro.
Yes, I didn't seem desperate. I was desperate.
Yeah.
I just didn't seem like it.
Right.
It has so much to do with your mindset. I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but I came at Donald and I did this workshop, not separate from each other, but we both did this workshop.
Did you ever do the forum?
No.
The Landmark Forum was a workshop that Donald and I both did as young people. I did in my early 20s. Anyway, it was such a powerful boost for me. I came out, and on the Monday I had 4 auditions. I got 3 callbacks on them, and nothing had changed other than my mindset and what I was saying to myself in my head. And
what was that? What did you say to yourself?
Well, I think it was just, I mean, obviously it's a great self-help workshop, but I was present. Mm-hmm. I was in the moment. I was being so gregarious and outgoing and fun and in the room. And I think I was just, I remember, for just a tiny example, I remember always going into waiting rooms and sitting there silently and looking at my shoes and just being awkward and cringy. And I remember that Monday, engaging with everyone in the waiting room and talking and laughing and being like a community of actors instead of antagonistically. And so I went into the room. By the time I got in there, already in a great mood, laughing, as opposed to being like we're in battle. Just little tiny things like that, but mostly just mindset.
Well, you guys know that getting anything going in this business, getting a project that you like, getting that positivity is so important. Just because it's so hard. It's so hard to do this stuff. It's so hard to get things going. It's so hard. So when you walk in the room and you're positive and you bring positive energy, and people say, I need this from you. You say, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to give you that thing that you need. That's a mindset that people want to have around. People, you guys know you come from comedy, and you know that people like that when there is a steady sort of comedic feeling just sort of in the air, that comedy just comes much easier. It just does.
I remember the rooms where I would come into auditions and everybody was laughing and having fun and everything like that. And I always thought, oh, they're trying to sabotage me. They're trying to sabotage me. And I would then I would step away from that and try to focus on just my words and everything. And I never would have a good audition when I did stuff like that. For Scrubs, I remember that. Zach wasn't at this audition, but Sarah was. I remember we were all in the room having fun, trying to make each other laugh. We all knew our lines at this point. You know what I mean? Let's go fucking, good luck to you. Good luck to you. Let's go fucking try and get this job. Because we knew how big the show was, or, at least that's what our agents had told us.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we won't keep you too much longer, John, but we have to ask some 2.5 Men questions. I'm sure our audience want to know all about that. We'll be right back after these fine words. John, you're a natural at that.
You're a natural at this, bud.
John,
every guest wants to be like, hey, so how you guys been?
Yeah, usually our guests think that we're going to take a legit commercial break and chat.
How long's the break? 2 minutes? 2 minutes? No, right away.
But John, you picked right up on our fake breaks. So what was the 2.5 Men? I mean, I know there was there was wacky anecdotes to be had. Did you enjoy?
Yes.
Did you enjoy your experience?
Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the
very beginning.
Yeah, okay.
Chuck Lorre. I just did a small guest spot on Bookies, and met Chuck for the first time. It felt good making him laugh. He seems like a very, very talented man.
Chuck is wildly talented. He had, it's funny because those still waters run kind of deep. He's actually, really thinking about the big questions a lot of the time. But his sort of method of putting stuff out is through, laughter. And, but he's a very smart guy. And I'm he's also known as when you're working on his stuff as a very generous laugher. He sort of starts that. Oh,
so you're saying
rolling.
these were fake laughs, John?
He's saying your laughs.
Just so you know, the laughs you got are super easy and
shit.
But no, I'm incredibly helpful. I'm incredibly grateful for that because it's incredibly helpful in just figuring out your timing and figuring out what works. And I had done this pilot with him where he was this incredibly generous laugher all the time we were doing it. And but that show didn't go. And so when I auditioned for 2.5 Men, the first thing I was the first time I'm reading it is not with Charlie Sheen. It was just, reading with a reader. And I come in, but I'm thinking, well, at least Chuck's a great laugher. So at least I got that on my side. And I go in and silence. I get nothing from Chuck. And I was like, what happened? Because I had heard him laughing for other people.
Oh, that's the worst. When you're in the waiting room, for those of you who aren't actors, when you're auditioning for a comedy and you're in the waiting room and you hear the person crushing in the room. And you're like, and then also all this thing like, oh my God, you're so funny, Jon.
Yeah.
And all that shit.
Oh my gosh.
And then you have to go in after, and then you're like, I hope I get a fraction of those laughs. That person just crushed.
Yeah. I got nothing from Chuck. I mean, he was lovely and cordial, and and he really liked, and he made it clear he really liked how the scene played out. But I was really thrown by it. And I get home and I get a call from my agent saying they want you to meet Charlie tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay, great. But I guess I didn't blow it. I come in the next day and it's like 180 degrees. Chuck is just over the top. Everything is hitting. Everything is perfect. And afterwards I walked out. I said, dude, you were awfully quiet yesterday. What was up? And he said, oh no, I was just in shock. Because nobody got it right before.
Oh, that's so cool!
And it was very late in the process. They had been looking for Allens for a month and a half when I finally came in. And I later found out that Les Moonves, the head of CBS, was not looking forward to me auditioning because I don't know, he felt like I was a show killer because my other shows had died. You're right. So I was thought of as kind of a spent commodity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they, and it was funny because at the same time I'm going in on Battlestar Galactica, which is a totally different part for Gaius Baltar, which is a wonderful role.
Of course, man.
It's a great role. Jimmy Callis ended up playing it.
He did very good at it too.
Yeah. But I would have had to do a lot of that show shirtless, which I don't think anyone wanted.
You would have gotten ripped.
I would have gotten maybe, but I don't know if America's ready for that. At any rate, so I'm meeting with Ronald Moore on Battlestar, and I'm meeting with Chuck like on the same days. These things are happening, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here? And I'd read the Battlestar script and I loved it, and I read the 2.5 Men script and I loved it. And so then I went and read with Charlie Sheen, and Chuck really dug it. Then they had me come in and meet with, and read for the Warner Brothers executives. And again, it went over huge that time. And then it's all building up to reading for CBS, reading for Les Moonves. And everybody is, kind of like, that's not going to happen. And but we went in, and Les, to his credit, according to Chuck, turned around and said to Chuck, "Okay, you win this one," meaning he was allowed to cast me, and I took that one because it was basically I had to remember how test deals work. I would have had to turn down 2.5 Men in order to take Battlestar, because when you're making your test deals at the beginning, just for non-actors out there, the way that networks used to do this during pilot season, they would make a test deal where they would totally pre-negotiate your contract before you auditioned for the network.
Yeah, because they don't want you to have any power if they
leverage
want,
whatsoever.
Any leverage
whatsoever. Because
so you sign your contract before they cast you. So like if there's down to 4 people. Those 4 people have all signed completely different deals because of their level of stardom or success or agent's ability. Yeah. And so you've all got like 7-year contracts signed, and then they just pick one.
Yeah.
But not only that, sometimes you get to the testing area for a lot of actors, for those who, like Jon is saying, had 2 on the table at the time. You get to the table and you're like, shit, I don't want to choose now. Can't we just let's get a little bit closer? You know what I mean?
And that way they both want me, and they can both vie for my services.
Right.
How about that? How about that?
And they're like, no, you got to pick right now. And it's like, fuck.
And what that means, though, is that you've got to pick. And like by making my test deal with 2.5 Men, that meant I couldn't do Battlestar.
That was a wrap right then and there.
So I was like, it was very possible that I could do my 2.5 Men audition and lose it and not have Battlestar and just be screwed. So thankfully it worked out, and I got 2.5 Men. And a little known interesting fact on 2.5 Men. My mother was originally played by Blythe Danner when we did the first read-through.
Oh, wow.
She absolutely killed it. She was wonderful. What happened was we started rehearsing, and Blythe Danner has this wonderful vulnerability to her which she didn't have at the reading. When we did the reading, she was just, balls to the wall.
Yeah, I've worked with her. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's wonderful and has but when we started actually putting it on its feet, that vulnerability just became real into how she was playing the mom. And Chuck kept trying to work with her to say, understand, you got to toss these off. If we start to feel for her this way, this gets much darker. Right. She can't think about what she's doing, and eventually it didn't work. And a lot of times
a lot of times actors think you have the part when you do the pilot. And we're here to tell you that's not really. You don't even think of the pilot as your final audition.
The pilot is the read through. The read through is still you're still auditioning. Yeah,
that's another thing is don't make sure there's actors who kind of phone in the read through.
Yeah,
don't phone in the read through.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That's my advice. If you asked my advice earlier, is don't phone in the read through. Bring your A game to the read through.
Not only that, and then when you get to the stage, you gotta, especially when you're brand new on it. Like, there's been times where I've gotten there and I'm like, I'm just gonna let my merit fucking who I am fucking, and then come show night, I'll give them what they want. But when you're new to this thing, or you know what I mean, or you're guest starring. You got to come in right away, no matter what, and you got to nail it. Even in rehearsal, even with the director, every time it's got to be nailed. Because if you
sitcom I ever did was I did a guest spot on Donald's. I was hoping to do one on your guys' show.
Yeah,
and maybe if you set it up, I hope I can do it. But Donald, I did. What was it? The X's, Donald?
The X's, yes.
It was so fun because I don't have experience. Most of my experience is Scrubs, which is not in front of a live audience, and making that audience laugh was such a joy. And it's so hard not to milk the hell out of it.
Oh my gosh, yes, it really is. It really, really is. And and when they're and it's fun working on new material because a lot of the time you'll try stuff in front of the audience and maybe it doesn't work, so the writers are running in with new stuff, and
I love that.
And it's a really fun atmosphere,
Yeah. So was it overall a fun experience on 2.5 Men?
Yeah,
did you and Charlie for the most part click?
Yes, we absolutely did right away. We had done Hot Shots together, that movie, and we'd had a good time doing that. And I didn't really get to know him. I mean, we were work friends. We didn't have that many scenes together. But I liked him, and he was an incredibly friendly, gregarious guy. And by the time we did 2.5 Men, he was sober, and so he was really on top of it and lovely to work with. The crew loved him. For those first few seasons, it was really smooth. And also it was really unusual because we got on the air, we were put behind Everybody Loves Raymond, which was a huge hit at that time.
Yeah.
And then we were a huge hit right out of the box. It was the last season of Everybody Loves Raymond, and they were hoping we would take over for them, and we did. We just were this. And and Donald and I have talked about this. Scrubs was an amazing show, and people got that it was a great show the first season, but ratings wise, you guys were always a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, exactly. We were never a giant hit. You were a giant fucking hit right off the bat. We never had that.
That's a huge. I still wonder what that. I remember what Clueless felt like, but to have a television show where I watched Tempest Bloodsoe talk about it when she was a kid. And she was very young. And she said the day that Cosby came out and they were the #1 show she said the very next day she could tell the change. From walking out of her door into the street, into where everybody was, she could feel the difference. Could you feel the difference? Was it like that? Was it like...
Yeah, it was pretty... I mean, this was when broadcast television was still a super big deal, and yeah, I could feel it. It was interesting, though. First season, it wasn't like night and day the first season. The second season, it was like I was the Beatles. It was that... I have no idea why it was that way. But I and that was just my perception, but But no, it was an incredibly lucky, unusual situation. That is, for actors out there who are listening, that is unusual.
Yeah.
And so I that's a lovely, knowing that you have a job, knowing that it's going to be predictable, and you can plan vacations, and you can plan your life, and you can have kids, and you can have a normal life. And you can really depend on this show being this job that's always there for you is great. But as 2.5 Men was living proof of, that doesn't always last.
Well, it never lasts. It never. Everything must end.
How many seasons did it go?
It ended up going 12 seasons. There was 8 seasons with Charlie and 4 seasons with Ashton Kutcher.
Wow. I can't believe you and Ashton did 4 seasons together. That's crazy. Like,
yeah, it was crazy.
How the heck? But it's a testament to you and to Chuck also. Like, keep it 100. The show. The writers
were amazing on that show. The writers were amazing on that show, and yeah, absolutely, Chuck.
But it was based on Chuck of Charlie Sheen at first. Like you said, you had to read with him. It wasn't like he had to read with you. You had to read with him. Yes. And then now he's gone.
Yeah. No, it was really, watching that show relaunch and seeing how the writers did that was fascinating because here's a fun little backstage thing. The original, after Charlie got fired, we all assumed, okay, well, we had 8 great seasons, we're done.
Yeah. As you would.
And Charlie had gone off the deep end. He was screaming in the middle of the night at Chuck. He was doing those crazy web rants in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I remember that.
International news. I mean, it was, headline news.
I remember he had Access Hollywood or one of them into his house, and he was talking about
winning Tiger Blood.
Tiger Blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Charlie Sheen. That's called. I'm on something called Charlie Sheen.
Yes, exactly. And it was bonkers. And I started getting these text messages from Chuck saying we may not be done, and I was like, what do we mean there? And I get this call. They're talking to Hugh Grant to take over for Charlie Sheen. And I was like, what? I beg your pardon. And they said, well, he's got that Teflon charm. He, he'd been famous in America for getting caught with a prostitute and then,
spinning it so
being
well.
so charming about it, and I thought, he's wonderful. I'm pretty sure he's comfortable in front of an audience. He'd be amazing to have. I said, well, but you're never going to get Hugh Grant. And they said, no, he's flying in tomorrow. We want you to meet with him.
Oh my God!
Wow!
Oh my God! So I went and met with him, and they had written this part for him that was this guy who was in the diplomatic corps, the British diplomatic corps. He took a spot at the U.S. Embassy in Los Angeles because his daughter was going to school at UCLA. So he'd be this incredibly charming, debonair guy. And then through the course of the episode, we find out, oh no, he's a con man. None of that's true. And he's renting out my house now because I can't afford my house.
I want to watch that show.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. It was a super fun idea, and I read with Hugh. And he was terrific. He was, he's Hugh Grant. He's wonderful. And
the blinking.
Yes, and the blinking. And he was wonderful, and it was great, and he was charming, and but I got this sense of remoteness. Like I could sense that he wasn't really sure about this whole thing. Because multi-camera sitcom is a very, it's a specific genre, and not everybody feels comfortable in it.
It's a very specific skill set. Yeah. I mean, it really is. Even if you're a theater person, it's a set of skills that only certain people can really crush.
Yeah. So he was, we had a great time talking with him. He went, he got back on a plane for London, and the next day I hear, hey, it's Peter Roth saying we got some issues with negotiating his contract. Will you agree to this type of billing? And I was like, sure, we'll do Laverne and Shirley billing. It'll be great. And I get a call 2 hours later. Hugh Grant is co-starring with you in 2.5 Men. The contract is signed. We're ready to go. I was like, wow, I gotta sit down. This has been a whirlwind.
Second Life.
Yes. Then an hour later, I get a call from Chuck saying, nope, he backed out of it. His agent said he was in, and he changed his mind. And we were like, glarp, glarp, or, so then I said, okay, well, that was lovely. Thank you for that fun adventure.
Thank you, universe.
Right.
But Ashton didn't come up as even an option until like a couple weeks later. I think that they didn't. I assumed again that we were done.
I don't know why they wouldn't. It's funny that once they had traction on someone like Hugh Grant, why they wouldn't be like, okay, well, it's going to be someone.
That's what happened. Basically, it went from we can't do the show without Charlie to maybe we can.
Right.
And Hugh was the first phase of that, and then Ashton was fun because Ashton. At this point, Ashton is very active in the tech field. He's been an investor in a lot of things.
He's invested in a lot of stuff.
He's made a lot of money doing that. God bless him. And so once Chuck had a meeting with him and said, oh well, he's got a lot of fun stories about Silicon Valley. It's we could have this guy be this tech billionaire who's kind of got. Never really grew up, and that would be a fun thing to play off against Alan's character. And he was just a breath of fresh air. He was great fun to work with.
And he knew the skill set. Obviously,
he knew the skill set. He absolutely knew the skill set. He was great with the audience, great with timing.
Not as good as Donald Faison though. He didn't go into the audience and dance.
Well, they got 4 years, bro. They got 4 years. We're working on 2. We're trying to get 2.
I'm talking about.
Shot,
I doubt that Ashton Kutcher entertained the audience on the level of Donald Faison.
Yes, I don't think so.
I don't know, man. Listen, he'll deny it, but before Ashton Kutcher was fucking Mr. Sophisticated, fucking whatever. This dude, we used to do NBA basketball all-star weekends together all the time, and we would sit there. And this dude I'll never forget this. He would sit there and be like, man, I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe I'm about, do you have a dunk idea? Do you have any clues on what you're going to do? And I'd be like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, man. We're just going to go up there. And they'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, next up, Ashton Kutcher. And he'd go from, oh man, here we go, to, hello! And I was like, this motherfucker, dude. And he's in the stands with the ball, looking at the crowd. You know the guys that run to the stand. You know the guys that run to the stands and act like your cheering isn't enough, and so you need to give them more, or they're not gonna. I can't hear you. Those guys. That's fucking Ashton Kutcher in front of a crowd.
He may. If there was a competition for who can entertain an audience most, you guys might.
It would be a battle.
Yeah, it would be a battle.
He probably owns a T-shirt cannon.
He does. He has a thing that goes
high
tech. He has that shit.
Yeah. Well, he's got all that. He's got all that tech bro money. He's definitely in the T-shirt cannon. Jon, thank you so much. I hope that the show gets picked up and found somewhere, and I hope that I can come on and do a guest spot.
I've said you should be the owner of the Knicks. That's what I have said. If Donald's character is going to be the owner of the Celtics, you're the owner of the Knicks.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. I newly like sports, so it'll be perfect. I'll prepare.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
It would be kind of cool to have you come in to play a character like him.
I'd love it.
That would be amazing.
Jon, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. This was a blast. This was genuinely fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
That was so fun. What a good guest.
Wow.
He was great.
Donald, thanks for knowing him so he would come on our show.
I'm so happy. I know him, man. Like, for real. He's such a... Listen... He tells stories. Yeah, he tells stories of his life and everything like that. And you root for people like him. You know what I mean? Because he's just a good person.
Yeah, and he's the ultimate example for those of you listening who doesn't have to be about acting, who whatever you're pursuing, about ups and downs. I mean, he had, as you heard, he had so many shows get canceled. He had years where he was barely working. And he had Les Moonves, the head of CBS, telling Chuck Lorre, don't hire him. He's a show killer. And then he gets a 12-year run on one of the biggest sitcoms of all time. I mean, it's very inspirational.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Don't stop the hustle.
Well, you can't quit. Can't quit cooking. You got to keep cooking.
Yeah, you and I got to keep cooking, baby.
Got to keep cooking. That's real talk. That's real talk.
That's real talk. All right. This was so fun. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. Joelle, anything you want to say to our listeners?
No, come back next week and listen to another great guest.
We'll have somebody new next week. We'll see who it is. Somebody new
next week. And
Daniel, is there anything you want to say?
Is there anything you want to say to the audience?
Jon was great. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I back that up. I'm excited for what the rest of the show brings. It's going to be great.
I have something to say.
Go ahead, Donald.
Okay.
I love my wife, Casey Cobb, and I love my children. Thank you.
All right, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Here's some stories about shows